Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier journalist and top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit Online magazine, Fernando Uribe. Happy April to you all. Hope you're all doing well. There is a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to piggyback off of a story that I know the CEO of Hudson Media Group, Pat O'Melia, collectively has talked about on his own program, and I want to give further context because, you know what, it's not really being discussed, and it's really a disservice specifically to Jersey City homeowners. And I think, you know what, here on this program, I like to be an advocate for sound fiscal policy and budgets, but it seems like that's not the case in Jersey City. Now, the superintendent there has proposed a whopping $827.4 million new budget, which will also carry a $1,168 tax increase for homeowners. So a shout out to Joshua Rosario with the Jersey Journal for his report on this story. Now, the timing couldn't be any worse for Jersey City residents, obviously because of COVID and other circumstances. But quite frankly, when is it ever good to have a $1,168 tax increase at any time of the year? Now, the superintendent of schools, Franklin Walker, presented a $827.4 million budget for the 2021-2022 school year to the Board of Education members this past week. Now, that's a 9% increase from the previous year. Now, the budget carries also a $1,168 tax increase for average property owners. Now, that's double the tax increase placed upon homeowners last year. Now, let me just sort of unpackage this even further. Now, the good news, obviously, is that the proposed budget, up from $736 million from the previous year, would create a fully funded school district for the first time in years. Now, like anything else, folks, when it comes to budgets and policy, there are some bad news. The bad news is that the spending plans by the Board of Ed comes at a time as the city and residents are struggling financially to cope with the year-long pandemic in New Jersey. And certainly the district is in the midst of a state-imposed 7-year funding reduction plan. Now, according to Mr. Walker, he said, quote, "My administration has presented a fully funded budget which will take into account all future needs and reverse the past budget deficit of deficiencies and give the students of Jersey City a real chance at the American dream. I'm asking the board for a bold step with an eye on the future. I'm asking today not just to aim at the 2021-2022 school budget, but taking an important step forward to reverse decades of underfunding and set up future and successive generations for success." Now, Walker's budget would bring 216 additional full-time employees, including teacher assistants, teacher aides, instructional specialists, and transitional specialists to the district. Now, some $17.9 million will be invested in programs that would allow all students to get eyeglasses, establish fencing programs in the city high schools, and fund smart board repairs. Now, last year, the district, which educates more than 30,000 students, was facing an estimated $150 million budget shortfall, due in large part to drastic cuts in state funding. Now, despite that, the school board increased spending by nearly $100 million, which meant a hike in that school tax levy from $136 million to $189 million. Now, again, here's some more vital information. The district is losing an additional $71 million in state aid for the 2021-2022 school year and has lost a total of $157 million since the state aid formula was overhauled in 2018. Furthermore, ladies and gentlemen, under the new budget, the school tax levy will go up to $293 million, and board trustees lamented having to raise taxes so significantly, especially given the fact that the budget crisis is expected only to be exacerbated in the years to come. Well, folks, let me just further unpackage this a little bit more for you. And again, just to sort of piggyback on what Pat O'Melia, CEO of the Hudson Media Group, has talked about on his own program, I want to go a little bit further here, and I want some accountability. I want some transparency, and because I talk about this not just on this program, but all of my other media programs, where, you know what, I'm a policy nerd. It's one of the reasons, obviously, one of the graduate degrees I obtained at Rutgers University in Newark at the Division of Global Affairs was focusing on public policy, right? And again, as a policy nerd, I want good governing, all right? I want sound fiscal governance. And it sounds like that's not happening in Jersey City. Now, again, I'm not privy to the books in Jersey City. I'm not privy to the conversations that go on after school board meetings or within the offices of the superintendent. But folks, I know one thing, having worked in academia and also having worked in government in New Jersey for 10 years, I know that waste goes on. All right. Now, if we want to be fair about it, and it happens all over the city of New Jersey, okay, whether it is an abundance of school districts, an abundance of titles. Listen, I don't want to denigrate anyone and their educational background and what they had to do to, again, become teachers, become supervisors, to become, department chairs, assistant, principals, assistant superintendents, and ultimately superintendents in school districts. Folks, these are very costly positions, and I don't want to say that they're not important, but this is where, again, New Jersey continues to fail its taxpayers, because we have hundreds upon hundreds of school districts here in the state of New Jersey, and instead of consolidating some of them, you know what, we're still sort of going about and living with these economic conditions. And folks, it does a disservice to homeowners, it does a disservice to taxpayers. And look what's going on in Jersey City. Folks, $1,168 is no laughing matter. You might just say, well, it's only $1,000. Folks, $1,000 to a lot of people that have been living within their means or even beyond their means to make ends meet during this year plus of COVID-19 is no laughing matter, okay? Maybe for some of you, conjuring up $1,000 out of your savings might not be a big deal, but it might be for other people. And that's what homeowners are now facing in Jersey City, okay, with this new tax levy. It's unfair, and I would like to see, once again, more transparency from the school board. We'll find out if they give it to us in the coming weeks and months ahead. But folks, I'll tell you something. This is a story that's not going away. It's a story that I'll continue to cover on this program, because at the end of the day, I stand up for taxpayers. I stand up for homeowners. I'm a homeowner myself, okay? I like to make sure that in my own city, Union City, that the school board is not implementing an irresponsible budget, okay? They're not. But in Jersey City, for many homeowners, and more specifically parents, it seems like this budget crunch and this amount of money that we're going to be exerting for the upcoming school year is coming at a really bad time. Unfortunately, some people need to answer for it. I'm not trying to put all the blame on the superintendent, but folks, we need to look at where we can cut some jobs that are probably unnecessary, because we all know they exist in every school district throughout New Jersey. The sooner we, cut some fat out of the budget, the sooner, once again, it might not be suffocating homeowners and taxpayers, whether it be in Jersey City or in New Jersey overall. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. In the latest edition of the 4-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you can listen to live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson, was my regularly scheduled monthly guest, the distinguished chairwoman of the Hudson County Democratic Organization and now a candidate for an at-large seat on the city council in Jersey City, Amy DeGise. We spoke for over an hour on a plethora of different topics, and here are some highlights for your consideration. First and foremost, we talked about the ongoing saga that is transpiring between State Assemblyman Nicholas Cervelati in the 31st Legislative District and Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis. Let's hear what she had to say about it.
There's a lot to cover tonight, but let's start off with the obvious, and I think that I think you know where I'm coming with tonight. Let me give my audience a little bit of a chronology here, and you can step in and tell me where I'm wrong in my chronology. So it's my understanding I think at the beginning of the year, or maybe late January, early February, Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis, via text message, notified, majority whip in the state assembly, Nicholas Cervelati, that he would not be supporting him on the Democratic ticket in Hudson County, along the primary day, along the ballot in the 31st Legislative District. And therefore, Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis decided to notify him via text that he will not be supporting him, and he decided to replace him. And that has caused a big uproar. And apparently, even with Governor Phil Murphy, U.S. Senators Robert Menendez Sr. and Cory Booker collectively, as well as State Democratic Chair John Curry and Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin, those phone calls were not enough to change the mind of Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis. There's a lot of speculation in weeks since he announced that Cervelati would not be welcome on the HCDO line. He has since nominated someone of his own choosing, William Sampson, I believe, a longshoreman and crane operator. Again, no offense to laborers. I mean, they're hardworking people. But that caught a lot of people by surprise, Amy. And, since then, Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis has not come out publicly and admitted what caused this rift between a guy that many would argue was instrumental in helping him get elected in 2014. He's been a close ally of the mayor since then. And right now, today, we sit at a ticket in the 31st Legislative District with State Senator Sandra Cunningham, Assemblywoman Angela McKnight, and William Sampson in the 31st. That's where we sit today. You're the chair of the ACDO. A lot of people are wondering, where does the chair stand on this? Amy, is my chronology of the events correct?
It's very accurate, very, very accurate. There may be some missing pieces, but nothing comes to mind. You really covered all of the important parts. But, Hudson County is never a dull place. If you would have told me last year that, we would have had an issue, Bayonne would have been probably bottom of the list. But, there was a lot of engagement with Mayor Davis on this decision, and he stands firm that he has the best pulse of his community and what their needs are, and felt that, Assemblyman Chevalotti was no longer going to be able to, serve his constituents. And it just kind of, wanted to change up the role in the assembly, wanted to put some new blood there, wanted to show some appreciation to a union that had come out and supported him very early on when he ran for mayor against Mark Smith. And, he felt that, the community was not being, represented as well as they could have been. He was really appreciative of Nick's service, spoke well of him, was not, displaying any anger or, anything negative, really. Did not want the man to fall and get hurt or, this be the end of his career at all. And you could see from his statement yesterday, he's not bothered by the Assemblyman still filing to run and filing his petition. But he had his reasons, and, he spoke with other leadership and myself. And, we too got those phone calls and the input from the people that you stated, like the governor and the senators. And, everything just kept going back to the mayor on how he felt about the representation in his community. Someone to partner with, someone McKnight, who's incredibly popular in Bayonne. And he has a very, very close relationship with Senator Cunningham as well. So I think collectively, it just came down to what he felt was best for his community. And, we tried to, just engage in a conversation on what, repercussions could be and anything, with the Assemblyman that we could work out, because he's, a very fine leader for Hudson County and has brought, a lot back to this county and has served Trenton very, very well. But at the end of the day, this was the decision. So, we'll be moving forward with it. We have no hard feelings against the Assemblyman. He, served very, very well, and will continue to serve his community as he's dedicated. But, we're excited to see where the new candidate will bring us and the ideas and the platform initiatives that he has, too. I know he's, very, very supportive of unions and would like to see more of that representation down in Trenton. And, as a union person myself, I'm excited to see where that could lead us. More of that representation.
Secondly, we discussed the ongoing debate about whether or not to abolish the county lines. Obviously, we're seeing much of the discussion circles around State Assemblyman Nicholas Chairwoman, who got kicked off of the HCDO line for the upcoming primary, but it's also going on in other counties in New Jersey. So whether it's affecting Democrats or Republicans, it's still a debate that, Chairwoman Amy DeGise continues to be sort of besieged with, and she had a lot to say about this. Let's check it out.
Other people that watch my show that would say to me, you see what's going on with the county line? See what's happening in Hudson? Look what's happening in Bergen. Oh, it's not just Democrats now that are complaining about the line, right? Look what happened to Nick. Well, some people tell me, look what's going on in Bergen with a Republican woman who's in the assembly, and look at this. And it seems like, a year or two ago when progressives were leading the charge, though, Amy, about, hey, we need to abolish the line, it was almost kind of laughed at, like in New Jersey media, I think by a lot of like the politicos in New Jersey. But it seems in just like the last few months, those people that are really emboldened about, hey, we need to abolish the line. Let me tell you something. It's almost like they're on steroids now, because now they feel really emboldened, Amy, because they feel emboldened. They feel like, hey, you know what? We were getting laughed at, but look what's going on. It's not just happening to Democrats, it's happening to Republicans now too. And I think that's kind of giving them their ammunition to say, hey, this is why we need to go to court. We need to fight this county line apparatus. I'm sure you've read the articles. I'm sure people reached out to you. Do you care to comment on that tonight?
Yeah, it definitely is a growing issue. We had heard, I've heard about it for a while now, even prior to, being the chairwoman. Sure. And it has grown. I think a lot of less progressive issues, have grown. Their voices are amplified. They're organizing. But I don't think that it will radically change in the time being. I think that our system does work throughout Hudson. I think, you could look at counties that do have, whether it's a convention or they've restructured the ballot, that there's no definitive line. And it doesn't work any differently than how we're doing things here. Let's say we had an open primary. Do we think that Bernie Sanders would have won in a primary? No. I think it would have been the same election outcome, and I always believe in that. I take such offense to that people think that this line is more than just showing people that the platform is an agreed upon uniform statement, and it's showing teamwork and how we can work together. It's not giving someone an advantage as they're walking in with 100 free votes or something, or they get bright, shiny stars and sparkling lights by their name on the ballot. There are plenty of people who have won without organizational support. There are plenty of people, who have, lost with organizational support and money and help. Yeah. And the ballot structure, listen, I've been voting since I'm 18. I've never had a problem locating a name on a ballot. When I ran for Board of Ed, I was at the far bottom over in this little island on the ballot. The candidates were all scattered around. It was confusing, and people still found me. So if voters, they look for, if they're a Democrat or if they're a Republican, they look for their organization because they're saying, listen, this is the agreed upon platform that I'm most likely going to agree with. They have access to everyone and all of the candidates, and every candidate who's run in the last 10 years has had social media and outreach, and everybody knows how to coordinate a campaign. So I really hate that sentiment that if you don't get organizational support, or if you don't have the line, that you don't have a shot. That's simply not true.
It was a very interesting interview, to say the least, and you can certainly listen to it in its entirety by once again going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. I'm so proud to have Amy on every single month, and of course, she's one of the many exclusives I'll continue to bring you every week on Blog Talk Radio. And I have some local stories for your consideration. And let's go back to southern Hudson County in the peninsula city of Bayonne, where State Assemblyman Nicholas Ciarvelati will not go down quietly, as he's still declaring an off-the-line challenge against William Sampson in the 31st Legislative District. Now, again, a shout out to John Hines for his report on this story via the Hudson County View. Now, State Assemblyman Nicholas Ciarvelati went on to say, quote, "I am in public service because I love my community, and I am filing my petitions to seek re-election to the Assembly because I want to continue to make Bayonne, Jersey City, and Hudson County an even greater place to live and work," the State Assembly Majority Whip during a statement this past week. Now, the three-term state legislator appeared to be coasting to a fourth term until Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis unceremoniously pulled his support at the end of February without any sort of public explanation. Obviously, for all of you that know the details, Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis notified the Assemblyman via text message that he would not be supporting him in the upcoming primary on the HCDO line. Now, the mayor has decided to throw his support behind William Sampson, a 32-year-old crane operator, longshoreman, and a first-time candidate for office with a very spotty voting record, according to multiple news outlets, which include Insider NJ and the New Jersey Globe. Now, recently, Ciarvelati signaled that he'll still be forging ahead for the June 8th primary, by sending out an email blast for people to sign an online petition for nomination, as was first reported via the Hudson County View. He did indicate recently that his recent legislative accomplishments should outweigh whatever Sampson has to offer. And folks, listen, this is going to be a very interesting story leading up to not just the filing deadline, which I believe is April 9th, but ultimately, should he get all the petitions in on time, June 8th, primary day, is a showdown for the assemblyman because for whatever reason, folks, whether it's Governor Phil Murphy, both U.S. Senators Robert Menendez and Cory Booker, even State Democratic Chair John Kerry, or even State Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin, none of them have been able to get through to Jimmy Davis and even force him to change his mind. Now, what sort of impact that's going to have on Mayor Davis as he runs for re-election himself next May in 2022 remains to be seen. But I'll tell you, folks, Hudson County politics is heating up once again, and who knows, there might be a receipt coming for Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis for this act. We'll find out what happens on primary day and whether or not Chairwoman has enough support to win off the line. He'll get votes in Bayonne, but the key is whether or not he'll get enough support on the south side of Jersey City, and if he's not on the line, that could prove to be challenging for the state assemblyman. And now let's move to Secaucus on a story that I find quite unfortunate and ultimately quite tragic. But 4 were charged with prostitution offenses in Secaucus, according to police officials. Now, 4 women and 1 man were arrested by Secaucus police on prostitution charges, according to Police Chief Dennis Miller, no relation to the iconic comedian. So a shout out to Ron Zetlinger with the Jersey Journal for his report on this story. Now, the arrests were made by the department's detective division as part of the town's ongoing campaign against vice crimes, particularly at the hotels within the town. So if you're all familiar, folks, right off of Route 3, whether it's the Red Roof Inn or other hotel chains, they seem to be quite popular in the Secaucus area. Now, the 4 women, which I'll decline to sort of name them just to sort of preserve their privacy, were arrested, and it occurred at 4:53 p.m., and of course, the 4th occurred at 9:06 p.m. Of course, police did not say where the women were arrested. Now, apparently Jonathan Polanco Cruz, a 29-year-old male out of Woodland Park, was charged with promoting prostitution, and he was also released pending a court date. Now, folks, this is really, really unfortunate, and it's something that I don't know why it's still sort of permeating in today's sort of social climate, but it's something that, listen, there's a reason why the township of Secaucus feels the need to have a vice crimes unit to keep investigating these things because they're ongoing. And let me just say this, I'm not trying to be comedic here, I'm not trying to sound like a smartass whatsoever, but this is still sort of alarming that crimes like this are still going on. Now, let me preface this by saying that, folks, we all know the seriousness of human trafficking. I'm not saying that this is a human trafficking story or an incident, but we all know that this is a situation that needs to be taken seriously. Now, whether or not all these participants are part of anything having to do with human trafficking, again, remains to be seen. Hopefully not. Again, it still remains to be a very serious problem. But I think a bigger question to ask is, why are these crimes still taking place? Let me talk to you, folks. Again, we're all adults here, okay? So, obviously, let's be real here. Why these types of crimes still go on, I don't know. Listen, as a heterosexual male, I understand that paying for sex, is something that we kind of do in some way indirectly, folks, right? During our adult lives, right? As, a heterosexual male, at some point, if you want to score with a woman, at some point, you gotta, pay some money, right? Take her out to dinner, have some drinks, establish a rapport, and if you get to score with her, God bless you. That's great, right? But at some point, you're spending a little bit of money, right? And eventually, once you start, prolonging the rapport and it goes into a dating relationship, that's all well and good. You're still paying somewhat of money, right? You want to be a gentleman, you want to be chivalrous, you pay for dinner, you pay for a movie, you pay for a night out of drinks or a wine tasting or whatever, right? I get all that. I've had to do that, and that's just something that heterosexual males have to deal with, right? And that's part of dating. But the idea of just sort of, paying directly and just saying, hey, listen, here's $300. And I want you to do A, B, and C to me in a bedroom. I mean, that's just something I'm just not down with. I've never been down with it. I've never understood it. I'm not passing judgment on men or women who do it. But it's just something I think that we should just discourage, and I don't understand why it's still going on. I don't want to sound preachy, folks. I don't want to sound sanctimonious because that's not my way. But I'm still puzzled that these types of crimes or these types of behaviors are still going on. I get it. Again, we all pay for sex in some way, shape, or form, right, when it comes to dating. But the idea of still going out and meeting a random stranger in a hotel for sex, it boggles my mind that adults are still doing this. So again, obviously the Township of Secaucus still thinks it's a problem. There are plenty of venues there and hotels specifically that make it very ripe for these crimes to take place. And we're hoping that they go down in their volume, but it doesn't seem like that's happening anytime soon. And whether it's social media, online dating apps, meeting people is as easy as it's ever been. And I guess, paying for sex is something that never really will go away. Lastly, we'll go back to Bayonne, and unfortunately, folks, a Bayonne woman was filmed during a racist tirade, and now she's been charged with a bias intimidation charge, according to Bayonne police. Once again, a shout out to Ron Zettlinger with the Jersey Journal for his report on the story. Now, a foul-mouthed Bayonne woman was caught on camera hurling racial insults after a two-car crash, and now she's charged with bias intimidation related to the incident. Now, Crystal Balance, age 34, who was arrested at her home Wednesday, initially was charged with disorderly conduct after a crash on March 16th at the corner of 52nd Street and Broadway in Bayonne. But an investigation into her post-crash behavior, which was posted in a 1-minute, 16-second video on Facebook, has led to a fourth-degree bias charge. And in the video, Balance is seen threatening to beat up a woman from the other vehicle, who happens to be black, and was shouting racial insults at her. Now, the woman remained calm throughout the brief ordeal, while police are seen working at the scene. Now, Balance is seen in the video also giving the police a hard time, daring them to arrest her. And guess what? They did just that. Now, as a police cruiser passed her slowly, she starts shouting at it, quote, "You want to arrest me? Come on, mother effer. I ain't scared of you." Now, Balance apparently became angry when the occupants of the other vehicle, which suffered what appeared to be minor damages, refused to handle the crash without getting the police and insurance companies involved. Quote, although she was apologetic at first, she was trying to pressure someone into just accepting cash because of the crash, which is a big no, according to one of the victims, Kelly Lee Ryan, who wrote in her Facebook post. She also went on to say, quote, "Once I stepped in and asked my friend if she was sure that that's what she wanted to do, it's because she doesn't know how much this is going to cost." That's the reaction she got, referring to the tirade that Balance continued on even as she was being handcuffed. In the video, the front bumper of the car Balance was driving is seen on the ground, partially under the other vehicle. And in the video, of course, Balance says that she accidentally slid into her by mistake. Folks, it's a biased incident, obviously. It's the second in Bayonne this year that was caught on camera. As you all know, in January, a woman was caught on camera yelling racial slurs at a black woman in another unprovoked attack. Folks, this is becoming a really disturbing trend here. I don't want to say it's just prevalent in Bayonne, but folks, let's calm down here. We live in this sort of social media intensive world where everyone has a smartphone. You can be recorded at any time via video or audio. Just behave yourselves. I get it. No one likes to crash their cars and no one likes to, deal with people. But do me a favor. Just act like adults. And soon enough, you won't be embarrassed on social media like this woman obviously is facing right now. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the leader in independent media, the Hudson Media Group, check out their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com and www.livestream.com/HMGTV. Don't forget to like the Hudson Media Group on Facebook and, of course, follow it on Instagram and Twitter. And remember, live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m., you can listen to the 4-time award-winning podcast Talking the Hudson by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. It's available from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. Always remember, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always talking politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I'm New Jersey's premier journalist and top Latino via the Latino Spirit magazine, Fernando Uribe, saying so long and thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.